Insufficient bids, part 1. There are times when it might be to your advantage to accept your right-hand opponent's or RHO's insufficient bid, IB. When your right-hand opponent makes an insufficient bid, the first option the director will give you is to accept it. For less experienced players, this can be a bit perplexing, and I've often seen IBs accepted or not accepted when the opposite decision would have been advantageous. Let's look at a few examples. You are third in hand and pick up this rather underwhelming set. Your partner opens one heart. It doesn't matter if it promises 4 or 5. This is the sort of hand that, inevitably, when you decide you will raise to 2 hearts because you have 4 trumps and a couple of doubletons, your partner immediately goes to 4 and it goes 1 or 2 off, followed by an impassioned critique of your bid by your partner. However, on this occasion, your right-hand opponent overcalls 1 diamond. You call the director, and the first option they give you is to accept the IB. I would advise this is a great time to accept the IB. The auction is now at 1 diamond, so you can describe your hand beautifully by bidding 1 heart. You have told your partner that you think 1 heart is a fine contract, and they should proceed with caution. This time you have the same hand in the same position. Partner opens 1 spade this time, promising 5, and again, right-hand opponent overcalls with 1 diamond. You call the director and are given the option of accepting the IB. There is no advantage here, in my opinion, to accept the IB. So, in this example, we are going to say that right-hand opponent takes the option of correcting to 2 diamonds, and you can happily pass. If, in this auction, left-hand opponent was now to pass and it goes back to partner, they may bid 2 hearts or 2 spades, which is all good with you. If they double, forcing you to bid, a bid of 2 spades now describes your hand perfectly, because if it was a little bit better, you would have accepted 1 diamond and bid 1 spade yourself. You could even bid 2 hearts and give much the same information, but I would be inclined to bid 2 spades. In the event that your right-hand opponent decided to pass instead of going 2 diamonds, this is still to your advantage, as you are very happy to pass 1 spade, as it looks to be a fine contract. Let's change the hand a wee bit. Again, partner opens 1 spade, and again, right-hand opponent overcalls with 1 diamond. You call the director and are given the option of accepting the insufficient bid. This time accepting the 1 diamond is a good idea because you can now bid 1 heart. It tells your partner you don't have a 2 heart response, you aren't able to support spades at this stage, and you have 5 or more hearts. It is then up to your partner what to do with that information. Just like a lead out of turn, you should consider carefully whether or not accepting an IB can be used to your advantage. In the previous examples, we saw 2, where it would be a definite advantage to accept the IB, and another, where it would be a definite advantage to not accept it. It won't always be so clear to you, especially in the heat of battle. So on the whole, I would say that the majority of the time there is no advantage to accepting the IB. If the decision to accept it or not looks neutral, then don't accept it. I see too many players accept an IB because they just want to get on with the game or they don't understand the process. Let's look at another scenario where the decision to not accept the IB could be used to your great advantage. You are third to bid, your opponents are vulnerable, and you pick up this hand. Your partner opens 1 spade and immediately you plan to bid 2 hearts. If your partner has a minimum value sort of hand, you know you are going to play in 3 no trumps, 4 hearts, or 4 spades, depending on partner's response. However, much to your surprise, right-hand opponent overcalls with 1 heart. You call the director who advises you of your options. I would advise here to not accept the IB. Sure, you could accept it in double or bid 3 no trumps, but why not make the opposition squirm a little and see if you can get a bit better than a game score? So, you don't accept it, and your right-hand opponent, blissfully unaware of the danger they are walking into, corrects the bid to 2 hearts. You now pass, which tells your partner one of 2 things. You have no known 8-card fit, and maybe you want to defend hearts, or you have bupkis and are happy to be out of the auction for the moment. So you pass, and so does left-hand opponent. Your partner cannot possibly let 2 hearts be played at this vulnerability. If they are one-suited, they will rebid 2 spades and you go to game. Nothing lost or gained. However, with a wee bit of luck, they decide to double, saying to you that if you have the first option above, you can pass, or if you have the second option, do something. So again, you pass, confident that your partner's opening hand plus yours will take them at least 2 off, which, with them vulnerable, is better than you scoring game. So we have looked at what you need to consider before deciding whether or not to accept an insufficient bid. What are the rules around what happens if an IB is not accepted? In the event you make an IB and it is not accepted, you will be instructed that, in order for the auction to carry on as normal, you need to make the bid sufficient in the same suit, or make a comparable call. The comparable call was introduced in the 2017 laws, and in 2024, many players, and directors for that matter, are still not really sure what it means. I will do my best to explain it. Basically, a comparable call is one that gives your partner the same or even more accurate information about your hand. There are situations then when pass or double can be considered a comparable call. Let's look at a few examples. I'll preface this section by saying that as long as the bid you make is the next level up in the same denomination or judged to be comparable, then the auction continues. There is no further action to be taken in terms of restrictions, penalties, or adjustments. You hold the above hand and partner opens 1 diamond. Your right-hand opponent overcalls 1 spade and you make an insufficient bid of 1 heart. Your opponents call the director and, in this case, they do not accept the IB. You will be given your options. Usually in the case of deciding what is a comparable call, it is good practice for the director to take you away and check what system you are playing and explain what is comparable and what is not. In this scenario, the first question to be answered is, had there been no overcall of 1 spade, what would 1 heart mean? Playing a natural system, it means 4 plus hearts and 6 plus points. So the next question is, does double after the 1 spade overcall mean the same thing? For most players, the answer is yes. And if it isn't in your system, change it so it is. So, on this occasion, the director would allow you to substitute your insufficient bid of 1 heart to a double, as it is a comparable call, and the auction continues. In fact, the double is a more accurate description of your hand than 1 heart. 1 heart is unlimited if there was no overcall, but bidding 2 hearts over the 1 spade overcall would mean 5 hearts and 10 plus points. As long as the substitute bid narrows the definition of your hand, as it does here, rather than widens it, it is deemed to be comparable. With this rather unexciting hand, your partner opens a game forcing 2 clubs. Your rather feisty right-hand opponent overcalls 2 spades and, having not expected this at all, you bid 2 diamonds. Opponents call the director and you get told your options. On this occasion, assuming the 2 diamonds is a negative response to the 2 club opener, then pass becomes a comparable call as it gives the same information as 2 diamonds, as your partner would expect you to take some action over 2 spades with 7+ points. So, director will allow you to substitute your IB of 2 diamonds with pass, and the auction carries on. A common insufficient bid is a response to ace asking or roaming key card. Let's say you are playing 4 clubs as ace asking, with an agreement that 4 no trumps is also ace asking. Your partner opens the bidding with 1 club, and the auction proceeds 1 club, 1 heart from you, 2 clubs from them, 3 hearts from you, 4 no trumps. Your partner has bypassed 4 clubs, as it could be construed as natural, and used 4 no trumps. You are playing 0 or 4, 1, 2, 3 as your responses, so with 1 ace, you respond 4 hearts. Your opponents call the director and you immediately realise what you have done. The insufficient bid is not accepted and the director takes you away and establishes that you have indeed responded 1 ace to a 4 club bid. A comparable call would be 5 diamonds, as this also says 1 ace. So the director would allow you to substitute the 4 hearts for 5 diamonds, and the auction continues. Similarly, there may be a situation where you go to ace ask with 4 clubs, but the auction is already at the 4 level. Example, 1 diamond from partner, 1 spade from you, 4 spades from partner, you go 4 clubs. In this situation, as long as 4 clubs was meant as an ace ask, and 4 no trumps is also an ace ask, the director would allow the 4 clubs to be substituted by 4 no trumps as a comparable call. In the event an insufficient bid is not substituted with a legal alternative, then the partner of the person who made the insufficient bid will not be allowed to bid again in the auction, and if that side becomes the defending side, there will be lead restrictions. The insufficient bid, which has been withdrawn, not substituted legally, is unauthorised information to their partner. However, if it is substituted legally, then there is no unauthorised information. We will look further at this in the next session, including how you can try to manipulate lead restrictions to your advantage in a similar way to loots. I should also clarify that an insufficient bid can only be substituted by a double if the double is a comparable call. While you can substitute the insufficient bid for anything else you like that is not comparable, bearing in mind there will be a consequence, you cannot double. So, in summary, an insufficient bid can always be accepted by the next person to play. If that happens, that person can make any legal call and the auction continues. In the event that there are 3 passes after the insufficient bid becomes the contract. If, as a player, your right-hand opponent makes an IB, consider your options to see if you can use this to your advantage. This could be to allow you to make a bid that you might otherwise not have, and give your partner cheap information about your hand. If you can see how not accepting it can give you an advantage, choose that option. It could be a case of that you hope to get the opposition too high so you can double them, or you know that if they substitute it for a bid that is not the next level, same denomination, or a comparable call, your side will be able to enforce lead restrictions which could benefit you. The director is allowed to advise you if a call you plan to make is comparable or not, and they can quiz you about your system. However, it is important to have this conversation well away from the table. That's the end of this week's session. It has probably thrown up a few questions. If you have any situations of bidding that you would like advice on, whether it be to accept an IB or not, or if a particular call is comparable, please post them in the forum. Please note we will be talking about comparable calls again when we look at calls out of rotation. so please keep any questions you might have about that until we get to that session. After next week's session, a Zoom meeting will be offered to discuss what we have learned so far. I will advise the time and date of this next week.